Happy Friday.
Yeah.
We're here again. LinkedIn Lives, Friday. We're a little bit late, actually, 2 minutes past. Sorry.
That's because we were talking about being really rich, Kris.
No. Okay, so we were talking about what it would be like to be rich. Can we just clarify?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I forgot to lock the Bugatti. Hold on. Ding, ding.
Yeah.
But no. We were talking about what it would be like to have infinite amounts of money, hey?
But that's not what we're talking about today. Morning, everybody. Today we are discussing performing under pressure, something our guests I think are probably very familiar with. So joining us today is Dan Lee, founder of Hawker Dan, and literally opened last week 1,000 trades on the park as well. So definitely under pressure. So thank you for jumping on this with us. And he's also the winner of MasterChef for Professionals 2021. So I'm sure that title will follow you around forever, Dan. But you are lots more layers to than that. And also joined by Samira Effa, head chef at 88 restaurants at Grantley Hall, and a Great British Menu contestant, so she can also understand the pressures of cooking on TV. So to start with, as I've just mentioned, you both competed at the top level on TV. So how have you learned, or how did you learn to handle that pressure? Because that's a very different type of pressure that I'm sure that you have experienced before.
I think for me, it's just time, really. From cooking in a kitchen at a young age to where I am now, you learn different sorts of pressures, whether it be service, doing a service with one less chef, those kind of things. I think in my time, I've learned to work under that sort of pressure, but I think TV wise, it's a completely different sort of pressure, and I don't think you really understand it until you're in it. So you learn, I think, when you're in it, I think that's when you learn it, especially for TV.
Yeah. And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, no, I'd completely agree. I said, like, in the industry, being a chef, you're used to dealing with pressure. It's a high pressure environment. Like, it's very tense. There's a lot going on. You have to be organized. Like, there is that constant pressure to deliver as a chef. But I'd echo what Samira said. TV is completely different. So you can be organized, you can be ready, but you go into it like it's a studio kitchen. MasterChef was, it's like built for a TV show. So things can go wrong. It's like not your normal kitchen comforts. You've got to adapt. And yeah, it's kind of going into the unknown. I'd say like the cameras and stuff didn't really bother me at all. Like, you kind of forget they're there when you're in the competition. The thing that I felt pressure for was on MasterChef was obviously you've got some of the best chefs. Like, obviously you had Marcus, Monica, then you do chef's table. You're cooking for the best of the best. That's where I really felt the pressure. And I'll be honest, I hadn't watched MasterChef before I actually entered it. I knew of it. I knew little bits of clips. But it kind of actually helped me going into the unknown on it because I didn't know what was coming up. I probably should have, in hindsight, had a bit of research. But I kind of benefited from not knowing, and I kind of enjoyed that because it kind of related to normal kitchens. Like, you never know what's going to pop up and you've got to adapt quite quickly.
Yeah. Oh, we've lost Kris.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll mute for just a second while that goes off.
Okay, and that's time up, guys. Thanks very much.
Samira, obviously listened to what Dan said then, and he had no idea what he was kind of letting himself in for. Were you the same, or were you an avid kind of Great British Menu?
Well, no, I've been watching Great British Menu for years, so I knew exactly what was coming up. Yeah, no, I was prepared in that sense, but I think still going into it, you still don't know how much pressure you're going to be under, and I think it's just self pressure more than anything else. You just want to do well, and then there's things that will happen that's out of your control. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to get critiqued, and not let it get into your head, so you end up making mistakes. But yeah, no, I've watched Great British Menu for years, so I knew what I was getting myself into for that side.
Yeah. And I suppose on the flip side as well, you're used to, you can make a mistake in the kitchen or feel quite the pressure in a kitchen, and there's only a few people in there watching that happen. But the opposite effect of this is that there's millions of people watching what you're doing? Is that something that you're aware of at all, or is that more something that comes to mind when you actually sit and watch it on the telly yourself?
I think for me, I mean, you don't think about it when you're doing it, when you're filming it. I think you only realize how big it is when you see yourself on TV, and you look, and it's just, to be honest, it's super cringy having to watch yourself on TV. And you'll look back and you'll be like, why have I done that? Why did I do that? Why haven't I done it this way? But I mean, I've done the competition 3 times, and each time I've loved it. So
yeah. Well, you must have to go back.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never.
So how do you feel ahead of pressurized situations? Not just TV, just in general. How do you feel ahead of them? Do you get nervous? Do you have to have a little word with yourself? Like, how do you deal with it? And then also during and after, like, how does that process work for you guys?
I enjoy the pressure of building up to it. As long as I'm organised, I like to be very organised. So like in MasterChef, I always tripped up on an invention test. I like to be very prepared for what I'm doing. And I kind of like the pressure, the build up to it. So I know that's in place. And when it's going, you kind of get the adrenaline kicking. If it's a busy service or a big function you're doing, it all kind of kicks in and you kind of ride off that. Then afterwards, you kind of decompress. And like, if it's all gone well, you're like, brilliant. That's exactly what I wanted from it. Now, obviously things can go wrong and they do go wrong. And I feel for me, like, try not to let the pressure, the anxiety build up too much where you kind of beat yourself up about it. Because at the end of the day, like, you want to do the best you can, but you're going to make mistakes. You're only human, and you kind of got to revise what's gone wrong. If it does go wrong, reset and just look at how you can't do it again. Like, a big thing that I've learned, especially from doing MasterChef, messing up on that a few times, is that instead of holding on to these things and like beating yourself up about it, it's like, okay, start again, reset, which is actually quite difficult to kind of teach yourself to do when you put yourself under so much pressure at times.
That's such so we've been talking a lot about resilience and being able to accept mistakes, get over it, sort of reset yourself and be able to focus on moving forward. So you said it's been difficult. What sort of things have you learned to be able to start to shift that mindset change?
Well, I'm still in the process of shifting and change, but like, I'd make a mistake and like I'd beat myself up for ages about it, like go over it again and again in my head. Sometimes you just got to redo it, even if it's like, I served a bit of raw chicken on MasterChef, which obviously is never going to go down well. And as a result of that, I had to cook again the next day. So obviously filming it looks all very different, split up into days, but that was 2 days on a bounce. Do 16 hours, you've messed up. I've got to go back to a little hotel room and basically process it, ready to cook again the next day. And it was very much was like, well, it's done now. It's kind of saying it's done. You can't obviously change the past, very cliche, but you can't. So, okay, how can I improve on it? Where did I go wrong? Find out exactly what it was and then learn from that mistake not to do it again. And it's a mistake. You're going to make them. And if I didn't make the mistakes I have done throughout my career, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. It's all a learning process, and you've really got to accept that a mistake is simply a learning process, not a failure.
Samira, what about yourself as well? Like, was it a similar sort of experience where you would do the show over the course of the day and then end up just being isolated during the evening and having to replay that sort of experience?
Yeah, it's filmed basically over a week, and then you do each dish a day. Sometimes it would be 2 dishes. So yes, like super long days. You'd have to get your scores or your critique, then you'd have to do an interview straight away. And especially if you had like a bad score, they want to get your emotion on TV straight away. So sometimes you'll just get whisked away straight away. They'd film you and you'd just feel like so deflated, but then you'd have to go back into doing another part of the cooking straight afterwards. So you have to be strong in that sense. But I think for me, I've done Great British Menu 3 times. The second time, I went out after my fish course, which was devastating. And it was, you've done all that preparation, you don't get to show your whole menu. It was, one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. But you have to be strong enough to realize that you're up against these amazing chefs, and if on the day their food is better than yours, and that's what the competition is. But it didn't mean that I wasn't going to go back and try again, and then I did it again. So it was good, actually. Yeah, it was good.
Leads nicely onto my question of how important it is to have perspective on pressurized situations and not, I read a quote that was, don't downplay the significance of the event, it's about reframing it to the proper level. Is that something you can kind of relate to?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to understand that not everything is going to go your way. You're going to do things that you would never do in your own restaurant. So I think when I did Great British Menu, you know, with the pressure of the kitchen, I overcooked my fish, you know, and I wouldn't normally do that. So, you know, when you hear and see those things on TV, when you're watching yourself back and you just feel like, why am I doing that? You have to have some kind of, you need to be strong to be able to take that and be like, okay, that's happened on that day. That doesn't define me as a chef. That's just what it is on, you know, that day. Not everyone's going to be perfect all the time. But I think at the end of the day, you're surrounded by such great people that you need to be able to just enjoy it as well. Like, I wouldn't have done Great British Menu 3 times if I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, you shouldn't put that. Well, that's it. You always put pressure on yourself from elsewhere, but he said you've got to have the perspective of what's going on. Like, it can't go perfect every day. Like, I know so many top chefs have quoted, like, you can't ever achieve perfection. That's what people try for, but you will never actually achieve perfection because you can't. Because even if you create your perfect dish and it goes perfectly well, at some point you want to improve it, then you'll look back at what was once your perfect dish and be like, oh, I could do that better. That's it. And it's growing each time. So I think in terms of perspective, like, yeah, you can see I've done it really well. Not beat yourself up when something goes wrong. But even if you do something perfect, I think my goal is never to think, oh, okay, that's the finished product. How can I improve? So it's always about self-improvement for me, whatever stage of my career I've been in, and where you get a lot of pressure from chefs that saying we need perfection. Like I've done, obviously, the whole Michelin, fine dining, all that route. When you're chasing stars, you lose the enjoyment from what you're doing, because obviously you're striving perfection, which you can't actually do in the end. So you need to like enjoy what you're doing and also learn from it at the same time.
Yeah.
Perfection is all perspective based, though, isn't it? Really, like, you know, there was a very good friend of mine who I used to do a lot of food photography for, and he would replay a dish like 12, 13 times for the photograph. And I'd say to him, I might have even told the story before, but I'd say to him, like, why are you doing that? He goes, because it's not perfect. I said, but no one's seen the last 12 incarnations of this dish. Like, you're only seeing the final product. So no one's got a perspective of what perfection looks like in your mind's eye. So is that something that you've experienced, or you both have had to try and work your way around, and just to, I mean, because it must be quite difficult to come to that realization that perfection can't be or won't be achieved, because perfection's different for everyone, right?
Yeah, perfection. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like I said, like, well, everyone's tastes are different as well. Everyone's opinions are different. Some people like the whole fine dining. Some people are going to more rustic looking food now. And as I said, like, I think as a chef, you need to, instead of aiming for perfection, be confident in what you're doing and showcase what you want to show, because every chef has their own personality. And at the end of the day, you want to showcase what you can do and how you do it differently. It doesn't have to be perfect in everyone's eyes, but as long as you're happy with what you're producing, you're learning from what you're doing and you're growing each time. I said, like, I will never create the perfect dish. I've created dishes where I'm like, yeah, that's spot on. I really enjoy that. But then it's not going to be perfect. Some people, like, for instance, my family don't like my food. My mum and dad just do not like my food, and I can't change them. I can't change their opinions on that. You know, my vegetables are always undercooked for them. Like it's just how they grew up and the food they grew up on. So I'm never going to please everyone, and even my family. But as long as I'm happy with what I'm serving and I'm making the majority of customers happy and catering to their needs where I can, like, I think that's kind of what you take on board and just go with that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think when you're creating menus, you need to look at, you know, the type of people that come to your restaurant, and ultimately you're cooking for them. I mean, the way that I create the menus at 88 is, you know, things that I like to eat, you know, things that my chefs like to eat, and you know, we could do the dish up, you know, 2 or 3 times before it goes on the menu. But ultimately, you are cooking for people that are going to be paying for, you know, the food. So you want to make sure that when they come to the restaurant, you know, they're leaving happy, and you're happy with what you're sending as well.
Yeah, it's such it's an interesting one, because all throughout my career, I've always met people who, you know, if you are a chef patron, for example, or you're setting up your own business, you're doing so because you want to be able to provide people with the food that you think they'd enjoy based on what you like. And then at some stage, there's this slight shift of mentality where you realize that actually, hold on a second, not everyone's going to enjoy it, and I actually have to try and to cater for the majority rather than for my taste. I mean, is that an epiphany that you've had to tussle with, both of you?
Well, for me, obviously, because I've opened this new place now, and like people have become so familiar with me doing Southeast Asian food because that's where I used to live or work. I'm obviously of Cantonese descent. And I've gone and opened a classic British pub food, and it's been interesting how people have received it, because people are still asking me, "Are you going to do your Asian stuff as well?" But obviously, I grew up in Birmingham. The whole menu here is based on like classic pub food, which I found in the centre of Birmingham. I can't get any more. It's either big chains that buy stuff in, everything. So I was like, do you know what? I used to grow up around this food. This is the food I grew up with. I want to go back to basics with British pub food. So I'm like doing these homemade pies, like homemade tarts, not the most British, but like obviously that's in the oven now. I'm doing like sausage rolls, a pint of prawns. Pint of prawns is based on because me and my dad used to, whenever we go to the pub, he'd get a pint of prawns and eat that. So I'm going back to basics, doing it with a little, I'll say twist of mine, but using fresh, proper ingredients. I said everything from scratch. It's a very simple menu. It's like pie and mash, sausage and mash, but we're doing it all from scratch. And it's been difficult to basically sell that to people and explain to them, like, the reason I'm doing it is because you can't really get in the centre of Birmingham anymore. Like, okay, you go to a pub, you go to a Spoons or something like that. Yeah, you can get pie and mash and get sausage and mash, but I'm trying to take it like back to where it was. So I felt a lot of pressure trying to push that message across and getting people to understand this is the food I want to do. I think it will suit the area, which has been well received so far. Touch wood, it still does. And then go from there. But like, that's a lot of pressure to completely basically change the style, what everyone was expecting. And I need to execute it in a way where people appreciate what I'm doing. And as I said, because I've got a pub down the road, which is another chain one. They buy everything in, and I know they do. But some people are just saying, oh, they're like half the price of you. And I was like, there's nothing I can do. But hopefully it'll win around. But it's a lot of pressure at the moment to get it going, because obviously we're only in our second week now.
And Samira, you've got how many restaurants or locations have you got at your venue?
There's like 5 different restaurants, yeah, and they're all different. So restaurant 88 is an Asian fusion restaurant, so that's the restaurant that I head up. And then there's Fletcher's, which is like a French type brasserie. There's the Orchard, which is like an outside type restaurant. There's also restaurant Sean Rankin, which has got a Michelin star. So yeah, there's so many different outlets, but each one shows a different sort of cuisine. And I think it's just great for the guests that come to Grantley Hall, because it means that if they're staying 2 or 3 nights, each night when they stay with us, they can have a different sort of cuisine. So in that sense, when we come to do the menus, that is what I need to do. I need to make sure that when they come to the restaurant, they are going to expect something that's Asian inspired. So as long as I'm hitting that brief, I'm doing my job.
Do you both enjoy working under pressure?
Yeah, I do. I think most chefs do, because I think when you're getting into service, that kind of buzz that you get from being in service is pressure. It's pressure to do well. It's pressure to make sure that all your guests are happy. And then at the end of the day, when you're getting good comments from the people that come to eat your food and they're loving it and they leave happy, that's such a great feeling to have. And it's the same once when you do these cooking competitions, to be given such great feedback from, your peers or, the top chefs that have to judge you. It's such a nice feeling. And I think you kind of forget that pressure that you were under in that moment, because you've got something great at the end of it. So you just kind of for me, especially, you kind of forget if anything happens like bad during the service, if something hasn't gone quite the way that you want it to happen. At the end of the day, if every guest in the restaurant is happy, then that's the main thing.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, so the feeling you get where it's positive feedback, whether it's on a show or especially from guests, especially guests who they don't really know what to expect. They might not know you as a chef or you restaurant. They just maybe stumbled across it, and you get really good feedback off that. Like, it's just such a good feeling, like pure relation. Like it's like, obviously you want to do the best you can in your career. And when you get feedback from guests or maybe critics, if you're on a show or anything like that, that you feel like not you've hit the top, but you're on the right track. It's like such a good confidence boost. But I'd agree as well. I really enjoy working under pressure. Depends on the type of pressure, but the buzz of being in a service, it's just pure adrenaline. I basically live off it, which is great. In terms of competition pressure, I said that Samira's gone back 3 times. Like, not for me. Don't enjoy competitions. The reason I like to cook is because I like cooking for people. I like to learn about food, different cultures. The competition side, not for me at all. That is not the pressure I enjoy.
And do you think you perform better under pressure?
In a restaurant service, I would say yeah. In a competition, hit and miss for me.
What about you? Well, Kris, do you perform better under pressure? Do you like to be under pressure?
Yeah, I do. I think if you work in, I think going back to Samira and Dan's point, I think if you work in hospitality or have worked, even just for a brief period, you get accustomed to a certain pace. I remember when I started working full time in food wholesale, and the speed that we had to work at, even from a sales perspective and an admin and a delivery perspective, was just something that it took me a good 6 months to get used to, because we had to match the pace of the restaurants that we were working with. But I found that actually pressure for me allows me, so stress or pressure for different individuals will either allow them to perform very focused, to really narrow in their perspective, to make sure that they're dialing in and to be able to maximize their energy resource for short periods of time. This isn't sustainable long term. And for other individuals, it's a complete brain fog moment where you drop all the balls, you're not able to concentrate. And I personally find that I tend to thrive over pressure, tight deadlines, making sure that I've got targets to hit, especially if it's lastminute.com, if it's running a business, making sure you've got those financial targets there, you're making sure you've got your budgets right, making sure that, you're converting the clients or the customers or the podcast, whatever it is. I love having that focus. Without that, I just get bored. And then when I get bored, then my creativity drops. And then I find that I'm not able to perform as well. However, having said that, if you flirt with fire for too long, eventually you'll find yourself falling down. So I guess it's a good question for our guests. And has there been a time where actually that pressure that you thrive under, that stress that you actually perform really, really well under, has become too much, and you've actually ended up having an adverse effect on your performance?
Yes, for me, yeah, and it would have been enjoying MasterChef. As I said, I'm so grateful for the show and going through it, because it put me into pressure I'd never normally put myself under, and it pushed me further as a chef, definitely. But at certain points, it got too much, and I just kind of crumbled, and that's when I kind of messed up on the show. And then taking yourself away from that and resetting was quite hard, but that was because I let the pressure build up. I normally said I'd thrive in it, but when it gets too overwhelming in my head, that's when I kind of lose it a bit. So again, that's something I learned from the show, or being in them situations where I kind of take it off, take a step back, reset, and focus on, okay, what really needs to be done now and where I need to be at. Sorry, I've got a business partner.
I think for you, obviously, you talk. I feel like you talk about it you were obviously under so much pressure when you were doing the show, but you did win.
I did, and obviously I'm buzzing about that, and it was just a weird one, because I kept saying to him I want to walk out, I'm done, the pressure was getting to me, and it was proper moments right before on studio, I'd go into the bathroom, stare at myself in the mirror, forgetting I'm mic'd up, they can hear everything I'm saying to myself. But I had to really build myself up to these moments. As I said, for me, I knew the chefs I was up against, they're all brilliant. I've seen comments before, people who go out in the first round of MasterChef. Social media is a brutal one for it. They'll go, oh, how did this person get on here and there? Anyway, every chef that gets onto that show, obviously, Great British Menu for me is the level above, because you're the best of the best. Whereas MasterChef Professionals, you're a professional chef and you enter, but you go through so many rounds before. No one on that show is like a bad chef, or like they're all extremely good, because you go through so many rounds, and then pressure hits on the first one. You don't know how you'll react to that. So people do make mistakes, and if you make it in the first round, second round, yeah, you can go out straight away. So I feel bad for them, because like they've still done an amazing job to get that point, but like to not be able to showcase what they can really do, and then they kind of get negative feedback off it. That's quite tough. But for me, yeah, went through it, very happy with it. I had to pick myself up quite a few times. I said, I don't want to put myself under that pressure again, but kind of molded me a bit to what I can and can't deal with going through that show. And yeah, I said the chef's up against is amazing. I didn't have a kitchen to prep in, so it was like very much my mum and dad's home kitchen, which is like the size of a box, like it's a tiny little place. That added pressure. So a lot of the times I went on the show and cooked, say, like if I had to do 2-3 courses, the first time I'd ever do them all at once was actually on the show when we were recording. So that was like pressure on myself, which probably why I don't like competition so much, because of the way I did that one.
Samira, what about you? Have you experienced that extreme pressure and everything just fell apart?
I think the lead up to going on the show is the hardest. So you have to prepare for it so much, you know, buying all your plates, the props, practicing your dishes. And I think the way that I was able to handle it was just being surrounded by the best people to support you. So when I did it the third time, obviously I was at Grantley Hall, everyone that was there gave me so much support. You know, you don't, you have to pay for everything yourself. It's not, you know, the show doesn't pay for it. So to have that support from everyone at Grantley Hall to, you know, provide me with all the ingredients that I needed, you know, and it's not just like one run through, you know, I would practice the dishes 2, 3, 4 times. So at that point, you know, I was under a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I do the dish up so many times, still hate it. And then, you know, sometimes I'd, you know, go in the morning, because I don't start work until 1 o'clock, which is really good, because in the morning I would practice, and then from 1 o'clock I'd do my day job. But then when I go home at night, I'd think about what I did in the day, and I'd just be like, oh, I hate that. And, you know, I'd get upset about it, because I thought, especially this third time after going out after my fish course, the second time I put so much pressure on myself, because I was like, I don't want to go out after my fish course this time. I can't do it again. So, you know, it did get a lot, and it was upsetting, but I had the right people around me. My partner is also a chef, so, you know, he helped me. And then the amount of, you know, food outlets that we have at Grantley, I was surrounded by so many different chefs who would critique my dishes. And then, you know, from the owners, you know, buying my plates, buying my props, you know, just giving you that little pep talk that you need if you're starting to feel a bit pressure. I think in the end I was okay, but I think the lead up to it is the worst. And then when you're in it, the first day of filming is always really nerve-wracking. And then when you've met all of your competitors, and you've all sat down together and had a cup of tea, and you realize that you're surrounded by such great people, and all the producers and the film crew are great, you sort of relax after that. So I think it's a good thing for anybody to do. Like, I would recommend a chef to do it, because I think I've grown each time I've done it as a chef. So I would definitely recommend, you know, if you got asked to do Great British Menu, I would definitely say definitely do it.
Would you do it, Dan?
Great British Menu? Nah, I'm out of competitions. Yeah, I said I'm cooking to enjoy it at the moment. But like, if someone said, like, I'd recommend people who said, like, I agree. Like, I know chefs that are looking to get on Great British Menu, they're waiting to be asked, like some very good chefs. Like, and I'd always say for them to go it. People applying for MasterChef, a few of my chefs want to apply. I'd definitely recommend it. Obviously, I said I'd never do it again, because I've gone through it and I've done it. And you know, it's a great experience. It's just not for me again, but I'd recommend loads of people to do it. And like the same what Samira said, like all the people behind the scenes at MasterChef, they're so supportive. Like they look after you, they talk you through it. They really do look after you. High pressure show, but they like, yeah, a lot of the runners, a lot of the back stuff on that show were the reason I kept going and picking myself up at times, because you do feel isolated.
Yeah.
But never.
I'm curious, how did you both get on those shows? Is this something you have to apply for, or something you get asked to do?
MasterChef you have to apply for. Mine was at the end of a drunk weekend in London, and a good friend of mine, she kept talking about a chef that was currently on that series, and I ended up applying on a hangover because of that.
For me, Great British Menu, I got asked to do it. So I think it was like a friend through a friend that had told someone about me, and then I got approached by one of the producers. They sent me a message. I think this was probably about 6 years ago when I first went on the show. I got a message on Twitter saying, do you want to be part of it? And then you have to go through loads of processes. So it's like they come and film you at work to see how you would be in front of the camera, and then that video goes to the channel, and then they have to approve it. There's loads of different processes before you get the yes. But yeah, I got approached by one of the producers.
I've just had another thought come to me. I have a friend who was on a TV show, and they portrayed her not in the right light. So, they cut it and made it look like she was not. She's a fantastic and an absolutely incredible chef, an amazing chef. But the final edit came through, and it sort of slanted in a different way. Was that ever something that you felt was a concern, or that had happened in any particular way for you guys? You felt that you were misrepresented in that way?
I wouldn't feel I was misrepresented, and it was a worry going into the show. Are you going to say one wrong thing, and will they edit it in a certain way? I wouldn't say misrepresented, but I would say my experience on the show, you're doing anywhere between 12 to 16 hours a day, and your actual airtime per episode is probably about 5 minutes at best. When you watch it back, it's a very different memory from where it was for me, a very different memory to what I actually did on the show when I watched it back, just because obviously it's only little clips. But apart from that, I wouldn't say misrepresented. Some things I wouldn't say come up. Yeah, no, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get into it.
Asking the difficult questions on a Friday morning. What about you, Samira?
No, I think every time I've watched myself back, I'm just like, yeah, that's me. I don't think they've ever cut anything to make me look like I'm not. I think they do really. I think they just want you to do well more than anything else. Obviously, it is a TV show, so if they see something that's like, oh, okay, if we do this, it's going to make it a little bit more dramatic, then they will do that. But I think going into a show like that, you need to understand that it is a TV show. It needs to be interesting. So if they do that, it's not to make you look bad. I think it's just because it's TV. But I think every time I've been on there, they haven't done anything, to make me look like it's not me. So
good. I'm convinced. Thank you.
Are you considering entering the amateurs, Kris?
Oh, you've got to be joking. It's the most ironic thing about the Burnt Chef project, which is, I was never a chef. And whilst I know everything about the ingredients and how to use them, actually getting to the point where they get one, edible, and two, look presentable, is a whole completely different kettle of fish. Obviously, you don't cook fish in a kettle either, apparently. Maybe. Who knows? It could be my thing. But no, not about you. What about yourself, Cara? Would you end up going on a TV show cooking?
No, definitely not. No. I have a select amount of dishes that I can do, and it's only because I've done them for so long over the years. I think when you have kids, you learn what they'll eat and you just perfect those. So yeah, no, I would never. No, it's not. I actually really enjoy working under pressure myself, but with an element of control, as in I know that I can work under pressure doing certain things. So would I want to push myself out of a comfort zone to work under pressure? Possibly not. Definitely not on a TV show where everyone can see. So.
Well, we'll try it next week's hospitality highlights. We'll make 5 minutes long, and we've got to get the same number of questions in. So we can try it and then see how you go.
No, I definitely like being the other side. Thanks very much. I know I can put everything together to make it all look nice, so it's good.
Wonderful, thank you.
Well, that's it. We've come to the end. Thank you both so much. It's been really interesting. Next week, we don't have you, Kris. You're at Glastonbury, correct?
I'll be there too.
Oh, there we go.
With working or leisure?
Just disappearing down a hole somewhere.
The rabbit hole. I'll see you in the rabbit hole.
I'm just hiding away, but yeah.
Hiding away. Any standout acts for you, Dan? Is there anyone that you're going to go beelining towards, headliners or not?
Shania Twain.
Shania Twain.
That's it. Like I'm just looking forward to a bit of a break, to be honest, more than anything. That's my holiday. Whether I'll relax or not, I don't know.
As I say, it's not overly relaxing, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, so I will not be here. So you're taking the helm again next week. Thank you.
I am. So next week we've got Victoria Shepherd, CEO of Alex Stilling at Hotel Cafe Royal, and Kris Gam, Chief Executive of Springboard. So they are our guests next week, and we'll try to be as entertaining as we can without you, Kris. So
I'm just going to dial in. It'll be fine. It'll be after Freddie and the Freeloaders on Thursday night at the West Holtz Bar. So Dan, if you fancy it, great band. I'm sure that, I'm sure it'll be fine. I can dial in 9:30.
In the morning, we'll do it together from Glastonbury.
Oh, God.
Mimosa in hand. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we've got on next week. And thank you again, Samira and Dan. It was lovely to chat to you.
No worries.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.